I mean, there's so many different things we can cover about the US. It's obviously the largest market. There's a lot of different areas we can take this. But to give you a little background on myself, I'm the CEO of AMZ Advisors. Our company's been around since 2015, which makes us one of the oldest Amazon agencies out there. And as Nick said, we've worked with hundreds of brands on the Amazon platform, particularly in the US. And I've driven over $500 million in sales on the Amazon platform. And we're one of Amazon's advanced advertising partners, meaning that we are in the top 5% of advertisers on the platform. When it comes to selling in the US, as Nick said, it's the largest market. It's the most competitive. You need a different level of sophistication than you may need on other platforms. And that comes to the actual selling aspects of it. First steps first, you obviously need to get your product into the country. And that requires a variety of different steps. Luckily, doing business in the US is fairly easy. It's easy to open an LLC, easy to get a tax ID. Once you have opened up an LLC and have a tax ID, you're able to actually import the product into the country. You'll need an importer of record to bring the product into the country. As well as some other documents, including the bill of lading for the order you have, the commercial invoice, proof of the country of origin. And that's a very important aspect that a lot of people forget, as well as any other regulatory approvals that you're going to need from the different regulatory agencies in different categories. So, for example, for food, consumables like cosmetics, beauty products, all that's regulated by the FDA. So if your products do not meet FDA requirements, you're not going to be able to get them past the customs clearing process, and you're going to run into some issues there. As a foreigner, being able to import products into the US, you can do it as a foreign importer of record. However, to do that, you need to sign a power of attorney with your customs broker to bring the product in. And generally, when we're talking about all of the challenges that come on the customs and logistics side of bringing your products into the country, we always recommend working with a customs broker to handle a lot of these aspects. As I mentioned, some of the higher level things that you need to consider, some of the documents you'll need are the bill of lading, the commercial invoice. You'll need to know your HS code or HTS code in the US. That is how the common tariff schedule is set up. So with your HTS code, you can see what types of tariffs you'll actually be paying to bring to bring a product into the country. And then from there, you can kind of start dealing with the aspects of actually selling after you have the approvals and you've cleared customs and everything else. What we recommend is for foreigner sellers coming into the US marketplace for the first time is always to use the FBA platform. Fulfillment by Amazon is going to give you the visibility and the leg up that you need in the US that you might not necessarily need in other marketplaces. So for example, in some of the other marketplaces we work, such as Mexico, such as some of the European marketplaces, FBM works. So you can have an FBM product and still be able to do fulfillment for it, and customers will still purchase the product. In the US, there's a much higher importance placed on being an FBA product, having the Prime badge, and consumers look for that when they're actually shopping. They want to believe that the product's going to arrive fast, that it's going to arrive on time, that they're not going to have any issues. So that's one big aspect to consider about consumer purchase behavior in the US is on the Amazon platform. They want to see the Prime badge. Apart from doing the seller fulfilled Prime, which has a whole nother level of expense, we usually just recommend doing FBA as the most simple way to actually fulfill the customer orders. Now, when it comes to growing your sales on the platform, the first step is obviously SEO. You want to make sure that your listings are translated and set up with SEO for the local market in the US. That means, obviously, if you're coming from the UK, using American English versus British English, as well as making sure your translations are smooth from country to country. In the past, we've done a lot of work with Chinese sellers and other foreign sellers, and that's one area where they really struggle is the actual positioning of the products on the platform. I'm sure many US consumers have probably noticed it in the past where you're looking for a product, you go to a listing, and it's either keyword stuffed or the actual context and the grammatic aspects of the listing don't make sense. That has changed over time, but it's still a common error that we see from a lot of foreign sellers that don't have the level of English to write the listings in the correct way. So we highly recommend working with either someone who can write the listings for you in native English or working with a translation service that can make sure everything makes grammatical sense for the local marketplace. From there, we started talking about sophistication. Or I mentioned sophistication a little bit earlier. Amazon's not a platform anymore where you can just set up some auto campaigns and you're going to get sales. I mean, at least in the US, it works, but your costs are going to be variable. You're probably not going to get the results you want. You really need to start approaching it from how you're going to set up your sales funnel for your brand on the Amazon platform. And that sales funnel that you're building in the Amazon US is going to help you expand to other channels. It's also going to help you with your own D2C website if you're planning on launching one in the US as you expand your brand. And that, once you kind of consider it from that perspective, it makes it a lot easier to start setting up your marketing funnel and using Amazon for brand discovery and helping consumers learn about your brand and find it. You want to start with bottom level PPC, sponsored products, to try to convert people at the bottom of the funnel that are looking for a specific product. That's where you're going to start with advertising. As you move up the funnel into the consideration phase, you're going to start with category and product targeting. So people that are already looking for products similar to yours, making sure you're showing up on their product page and getting them back to your product listings. That's obviously a key aspect. And then once you move beyond that, you're looking at top of funnel advertising, which could be sponsored brands. It could be sponsored display. It could be DSP. Could be off platform traffic through Google. That's one way that we drive traffic to Amazon. So when we're looking at all of these aspects, it takes a lot more work to manage the expansion aspects to the US. And I think where we see a lot of brands be unsuccessful in the expansion side is when they either don't have enough money to invest into the advertising complexity that you need on the US to be successful, or they don't invest in the right logistics partners. So this can lead to a lot of delays with getting products into the country. It can lead to tie-ups at customs. When you run out of inventory on the Amazon platform, at least in the US, it is that much more difficult to get going. So if you don't have the correct logistics sides tied down in your business when you're expanding to the US, you're going to eventually end up hurting your listings, because as you run out of inventory, as you're not able to advertise and not able to convert more consumers, you're going to lose ranking. And then you're starting pretty much from zero by trying to build all the advertising momentum up again. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for brands, to be in the US and to capture a little bit of market share, but it does take a little bit more investment. It takes a little bit more sophistication and definitely a lot more preparation on the back end with the logistics and the operations side. But there's more than enough opportunity. Like we said, we've worked with over 500 brands and getting them into the US. And if you are interested in learning more about getting to the US, you can feel free to reach out to us at amzadvisors.com or reach me directly at my email, mike@amzadvisors.com.